Hey guys, it's Maria, and today I'm going to be going over an SAT reading passage with in-depth analysis and answering all the questions. Okay, so before I get started with answering the questions, just pause the video and read the passage, and then we can go over it together. Okay, so if you watch my SAT general overview video, you'll know that I have kind of a strategy for tackling these questions. So if you can see the first one, question 32 is talking about the main purpose of the passage. So I'm just going to highlight this one and save it for later. Because again, I'll try to be finding the questions that focus on specific lines first, so you're able to kind of pick out those detailed analytical sections before tackling the main idea parts. Okay, same with question 33. 34 is also main idea as we throughout the whole passage, and then 35 is slightly more detailed. 36 is also general, and then we can see 37, 38, 39, 40, and 41 are all focused on specific lines. Again, you don't have to go with the strategy I'm going with. So if you find that the main idea of the passage is clear to you, then go ahead, answer the questions chronologically. But maybe if you're a little confused, the passage is from 1938. So if it seems kind of all a bit fuzzy to you, then you can just try to tackle the smaller pieces of just focusing on individual lines, so it seems less overwhelming in the beginning. Okay, so first I'm going to go with question 35, since it focuses on kind of a specific part of the passage, the bridge. So if we go back up to the passage, we can see here that they talk about the bridge in the first paragraph. Okay, and so they mention Westminster, Houses of Parliament. And then here is when they start talking about the people on the bridge. So we can see that they talk about brothers, education, pulpits, preaching, teaching, administering justice, practicing medicine, all these different jobs that men hold. So if we go back to the question, which says, according to the passage, Wolfe chooses the setting of the bridge because it. So we can read the answers here. And I am gonna go with it's not A, because it's conducive to a mood of fanciful reflection, because it doesn't exactly seem kind of a nice reflection of it. Although the passage does appear to be kind of looking at a particular moment, it doesn't really give me a very strong sense of reflection. So I won't eliminate it just yet, but it doesn't seem like the immediate right answer. And then B, provides a good view of the procession of the sons of educated men. So I'm going to mark this one because it seems so far the most correct one, but I'll be going over the other answers just to eliminate them. Because in the passage it does mention all these jobs that these men have as in public schools and universities, medicine, justice, things like that kind of go along with the whole procession idea. Okay, and then C is within sights of a historical episode to which she alludes. Again, kind of similar to A, it could maybe be, it doesn't seem to be historical because, kind of similar with A, it doesn't seem to be very reflective. It does seem to the passage does seem to consider a specific moment, but not in a historical way. And then with D is symbolic of the legacy of past and present sons of educated men. If you can see kind of the tone of the second paragraph, although it does focus on a specific moment, it also seems very present. So for example, in lines 23, for their trespassing along at the tail end of the procession we go ourselves. Because the passage is written with this present tense form, it doesn't seem very historical and or reflective to me. So because of that, I'm gonna go with answer B. Okay, and then question 37, which line provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question? Okay, so we can just go through each line. section at a time. So first line, oh, sorry. To answer question 37, we need to go to question 36, which is main idea. So maybe we can save that one for later. Okay, let's go with actually question 38, which is more of like a standalone detailed question. Okay, so it mentions lines 53 through 57, so we can go over there. Okay, 50 through 57. For we have to ask ourselves here and now, do we wish to join that procession or don't we? On what terms shall we join that procession? Above all, where is it leading us, the procession of educated men? Okay, so we've read the lines. And, okay, so going over all the answers. First, controversial and threatening. So, the mood of these lines that I got was that it seemed like very immediate, kind of like a call to action. But I wouldn't say that it seemed threatening. It seemed kind of like momentous to me. Perhaps controversial, as like this passage overall seems kind of like an opinion piece of what she wants like women to do, like as a call to action. So I'd say that could be controversial, but not particularly threatening to me. And then B, weighty and unanswerable. Okay, so the moment that Woolf is pinpointing does seem weighty. Throughout the passage, if you've read it, it seems like fairly consistent in that like she's like pushing the audience to do something. But if you go back to the second part of the answer, unanswerable, that doesn't really seem to reflect with the opinion piece of the passage, because she's clearly directing the audience towards like one specific opinion, so being unanswerable wouldn't really make sense if she was trying to get the audience to do a particular action. Okay, and then C, momentous and pressing. That seems like the closest answer to me, like, so far, before we go over the last option, because it goes along with like that like imminence and also like that importance that I talked about earlier of like an important call to action that like clearly leads towards one particular direction. Okay, and then D, provocative and mysterious. Again, so like the first half of the answer, like it could be provocative in that like I feel like Woolf is anticipating that that the passage can be seen as like controversial-ish to some people, but it wouldn't really be mysterious again as an opinion piece if she was trying to direct people towards like one specific action. So I'm gonna go with C for this answer, momentous and pressing. Okay. So question 39, which choice provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question? Okay. So we've just decided that it's momentous and pressing, and now we need to find evidence. Okay, so we can go to each line. First, lines 46 and 47. Okay. We have not come here to laugh or to talk of fashions, men and women's. We are here on the bridge to ask ourselves certain questions. Okay, so far that seems like pretty like imminent and pressing to me. We can go over other lines though to see if it fits more directly with the answer. Okay, lines 48 and 49. Okay. And they are very important questions, and we have very little time in which to answer them. So, although, like, lines, like, 46 and 47 seem to be, beginning to point towards this, like, eminence, we can see that, like, the next two lines, 48 and 49, that she specifically mentions, like, very little time specifically in which to mention them. That seems to, like, imply far more, like, eminence and, like, precedence than before. Than in like the previous two lines. So far B looks like the closer answer, but again we can go over the other two lines. Okay, and then line 57. Okay, the moment is short. It may last 5 years, 10 years, or perhaps only a matter of a few months longer. So that seems like less imminent to me, because although she is saying that the moment is short, she also like concedes that it could like last longer, like months, years, decades. So that seems like less like pressing to me than like answer B, for example. Okay, and then the last line, line 62. Okay, that excuse shall not serve you, madam. So this one doesn't seem to really fit the pattern of the other answers. Like, out of context of the rest of the passage, this line doesn't really seem to be giving us a lot, and even if you consider it within the passage, it doesn't really, like, implicate, like, a lot of, like, pressing issues at hand or anything. Just kind of, like, it's just, like, leading towards, like, a rejection or a denial of this, like, likely controversial opinion, so it doesn't really match with other answers. So I'm going to go with answer B on this one, because it specifically mentions, like, time. So, rereading that line again, and they are very important questions, and we have very little time in which to answer them. So that really goes back to, like, directly pressing, and momentous, because she, in those lines, very, like, explicitly states that there isn't a lot of time, which goes with the pressing part. And then in terms of momentous, she specifically mentions that they are very important questions. So that covers, like, both sides of the argument, while the other lines maybe might cover, like, the pressing part or the momentous part, but not both. Okay, and then question 40. Which choice most closely captures the meaning of the figurative sixpence referred to in lines 70 and 71? Okay, so going to those lines, 70, 71. It was thus that they won us the right to our brand new sixpence. It falls to us now to go on thinking, how are we to spend that sixpence? Okay. Oops. Okay, so the first answer, tolerance. Given the context of they have won us the right to give us the sixpence, how are we going to spend it? Tolerance doesn't really seem to be, like, the right answer here, especially in the rest of the passage. She seems to imply that, like, women need to kind of, like, get together in, like, solidarity and unity, and kind of, like, step up to this occasion. And it doesn't seem like tolerance is what they're preaching, but rather like the opposite of tolerance for, like, the existing and, like, previous conditions. So I'm gonna, like, say that tolerance is not the right answer, but again, we could go back, look at the other answers first and see which one is the most, which one is closest to the, like, implied meaning. Okay, so the next is knowledge. I think this answer is a little closer, because it kind of goes with, like, men, or, like, the people in power have, like, given us this sixpence, like, this, like, currency, this value, and now what are we gonna do with this? So I can see, like, knowledge aligning with this a little bit more, but it doesn't also seem like the most precise answer. So going forward, this one is definitely closer than tolerance, but maybe not the most, like, direct answer we can get. Okay, and then C, opportunity. So this answer feels closer than knowledge, because kind of, like, going with the whole, like, money metaphor of, like, people in power have given us sixpence, now what are we gonna do with it? That seems to align a lot more with, like, kind of, like, the power and, like, the opportunity that money has versus, like, maybe particular knowledge. And so opportunity would align a lot more with kind of, like, the opportunistic viewpoint that Woolf takes on, and trying to, like, emphasize how, like, women need to, like, use this particular moment to, like, rise up. Okay, and then the last one, D, perspective. So this kind of goes along with, like, the tolerance part of, it doesn't really make sense with the rest of Woolf's argument, because she's, like, arguing for a woman to, like, rise up and do something, like, unprecedented. So, like, tolerance for existing institutions, or, like, perspective, a differing or, like, similar perspective on existing institutions wouldn't really make sense in kind of this, like, rebellion piece. So I'm going to go with C, opportunity. Sorry, that's kind of bad. C, opportunity, because it seems to reflect the most on this kind of like, now is like the moment to like rise up and like do all these specific things, instead of like like knowledge of which instead of knowledge, which kind of goes with more like acknowledging but not really doing anything as much as like opportunity. All right, okay. So, last question before you hit up like the main idea passages, or sorry, the main idea questions. So, 41, the range of places and occasions listed in lines 72 through 76 mainly serve to emphasize how. Okay, so let's go back to those lines. Okay, I'm going to use a different color here so it's not too confusing. 72 through 76. Okay. Let us think in offices and omnibuses, while we're standing in the crowd watching coronations and Lord Mayor's shows. Let us think in the gallery of the House of Commons and the law courts. Let us think at baptisms and marriages and funerals. Okay, so these lines are basically just stating like different locations that Woolf says the woman should like think at. Okay, so the first possible answer, A, novel mainly serves to emphasize how novel the challenge faced by women is. I don't really think this is the correct answer because by like listing all these places, Woolf I think is emphasizing more importance, if anything, than kind of like a novel characteristic of this movement that she's emphasizing. Like, going with like the overall idea of the piece that we've kind of picked up so far based on answering other questions, it seems like she's emphasizing this like rebellion and this like change of ideas, and so it wouldn't really make sense for her to then like not like recognize the value and the importance of the work that she's trying to get women to do. Okay, and then B, pervasive, emphasize how pervasive the need for critical reflection is. So this one sounds closer, because by listing all these places, like above, with like Lord Mayor shows, House of Commons, law courts, baptisms and marriages and funerals, that kind of goes along with like the whole like idea of being pervasive, by listing different locations. So it kind of shows how like widespread this problem that she's explaining is, and the need for critical reflection. So we can see that critical reflection component in how she says, like, let us think. So yeah, okay. So that's my like closest answer so far. But again, going through the rest of the answers just to eliminate them. So C, emphasize how complex the political and social issues of the day are. So that could be argued, in terms of like she does list like political and social places and like House of Commons, law courts, baptisms, marriages, funerals, that whole thing, but it doesn't really emphasize like complexity that much. So like by listing locations, that emphasizes like pervasiveness and like how like widespread it is in society, but I wouldn't say that she's necessarily implying that it's complex. Like it could be, but like directly looking at what she's saying about thinking in these particular like places, complexity is not like the main issue I think on the table. It's more like the existence of these issues, if that makes sense. Okay, and then D, emphasize how enjoyable the career possibilities for women are. So that's kind of like not really, that doesn't really go with kind of like the rest of the answers because, again, in like this piece, the tone is like pretty solemn, pretty grim, like pretty determined. Um, this piece is not really like praising the existing opportunities that women have, so it wouldn't really make sense, for her like arguing in the like whole beginning of the passage about how like women need to like use this like specific situation and like stand up for themselves, to then like kind of like change tones a little bit more and talk about like how like exciting, or sorry, not exciting, but like how enjoyable the career possibilities would be, because I don't think her message is like we're taking on this movement because our careers are going to get so much better, but more as in like an equality kind of like abstract like equality argument versus like just specific like, oh, now I gotta become like, you know, like an educator or like a lawyer or a doctor. That doesn't really seem to be our motive here. So based on that, I'm going to go with B for the correct answer for 41. Okay, so we've answered the specific questions, and you may have already kind of like picked up on like my like opinions or like my like meaning for like the like the significance of the passage. But we can now go over like kind of like the central ideas after going over like all the like detailed like questions on specific lines and everything. Again, you don't have to choose this method. If you've read the passage and you're like, okay, that's clear to me, like, I know what this passage is about, I'm fine. You don't have to take this strategy. It's just if you feel like kind of overwhelmed about like where to even start on like the main idea of this whole passage, then it's easier to kind of focus on specific lines and kind of like direct your attention towards like manageable questions. Okay, so 32. The main purpose of the passage is to A, emphasize the value of a tradition. So I don't think this is where Woolf is going. Like I mentioned earlier, this passage, if anything, seems to be implying like a rebellion, like rebellion change type situation. If anything, Woolf is like criticizing the traditions of the past of like patriarchal, like motives and opportunities and everything. So I don't think it's A. Okay, B, stress the urgency of an issue. So this seems closer to me. If you've seen the passage, she seems to really emphasize like a now of like her arguments. Of like, we have done these things for so long and now we are able to like take our time and like do these things. Like going using a different color. Using like in the later parts of the section, she's like, think we must. Let us like think in offices. Let us never cease from thinking. It kind of emphasizes like, you know, like an urgency, kind of like an immediacy of the issues that she's mentioning by using like present tense. Let us, now, we together do these things. Okay, and then C, highlight the severity of social divisions. So this passage does like bring up like gender inequality, so that could be like a possibility, because she is like calling out like how unfair it is that like women haven't been given like the opportunities that men have, but the like main idea of the passage, like she uses that as like kind of like the first half of her argument as like we have to acknowledge these differences, but then I want us to do something about it, not just kind of focusing on like how severe these gaps are, but that she wants to close it. So she isn't like undermining that the divisions aren't severe. Like they are severe because her argument is based on like they're so severe that we should do something about it, but she doesn't like stop there at like these divisions are just severe, because she gives the audience then like a game plan for like what to do about it. So this particular like possible answer covers like part of her argument, but not like the total like call to action part. Okay, and then D, question the feasibility of an undertaking. So throughout this passage, Woolf is, I would say, pretty confident in like what she wants women to accomplish and everything. So if like anything, she's like urging the audience to like take on this undertaking that she's suggested. So I don't think like question would be the right word, because she isn't expressing a lot of doubt in this passage. If anything, it's like she's just like projecting confidence to get women to like change. So I don't think it's D. So I'm going to go with B for the answer, because throughout the passage, as she's explaining like the current situation, like the possibilities for women to be able to like take their like equal positioning in society, there's like this like stress of like urgency and like now kind of like emphasized in everything. So that seems like the most direct main purpose to me. Okay, next questions. Let's go with Sorry, you can't really see that, but let's go with 33. Okay, 33. The central claim of the passage is that a educated woman faced a decision about how to engage with existing institutions. Okay, so I can see this, because in the passage, she talks, like, her audience is, like, women, who are just kind of, like, sitting on the sidelines, as she sees that at the moment. And educated woman facing a decision about how to engage with existing institutions. She mentions these existing institutions, in the first half of the second paragraph here, talking about, like, schools and universities, preaching, teaching, administering justice, like, all these existing things that men do. So I can see how she, and then she also talks about, like, the decision then, where women, like, see what's happening with these men, and then, like, in the second half of the passage, when she's doing, like, her call to action about, like, let us think, let us never cease from thinking, that is, like, the decision component of that. So far this seems like the correct answer to me, but let's also eliminate the other answers just in case. Okay, so then B, women can have positions of influence in English society only if they give up some of their traditional roles. So I don't see, like, Woolf necessarily talking about, like, necessary sacrifices to make in order for her to, like, in order for a woman in the society, like, to reach her, like, ideal expectation or anything. If anything, she's emphasizing how, like, women shouldn't have to sacrifice anything in order to, like, get to where men are. So for me, I'm not really seeing, like, a lot of sacrifice, or, like, giving up anything, because Woolf is kind of criticizing these traditional roles to begin with, like, especially in the second half of the second paragraph, she's saying, like, we too can leave the office, can mount those steps, pass in and out of those doors. She's not, if anything, she's kind of criticizing those, like, traditional roles and saying, like, we can now, like, step outside of our comfort zone and where, like, the boxes we've been placed into to now do these new things. Okay, and then C, the male monopoly on power in English society has had grave and continuing effects. So I can see this. Again, it kind of seems like a only half the argument type answer, in that, like, she, in, like, the beginning too, when she's kind of, like, breaking down, like, the context and, like, the setting for this, she is really emphasizing that, like, male monopoly, like, the men are passing over the bridge, going to all these, like, public institutions, and women are just, like, sitting at home and everything. But at the same time, like, in the second half of the passage, then she talks about what women can do to, like, like, rise up and, like, take what they deserve, and, like, be in positions of power too. So she's not really emphasizing, like, the existing, like, grave and continuing effects, of men in power, because she's then shifting her argument to, okay, but, like, if women now take power, then we don't have to deal with these problems anymore. So it's not, like, a warning piece, it's more like a, like, encouraging, like, inspirational, like, rise up piece of writing. Okay, and then D, the entry of educated women into positions of power traditionally held by men will transform these positions. I could kind of see this, but also not really. So, like, in the second half of the argument, she talks about, like, all these different places, like House of Commons, law courts, baptisms and marriages and funerals. What are these professions, and why should we be making money out of them? But she doesn't really talk a lot about, like, changing these professions, just, like, by the idea of, like, women theoretically stepping into them. Like, it seems like she's almost trying to, like, replace, like, men with women. So I don't sense, like, a lot of changing the roles once women step into positions of power, but more just, like, the shift in getting them from, like, second-class citizens to then, like, equality with men. So it seems more about, like, the movement of, like, change, rather than once they get there to, like, changing that position in particular. Okay. So with all of that, I'm gonna go with A, because, like, throughout the whole passage, Woolf is, like, emphasizing, like, Woolf is directing her argument towards, like, you know, these educated women who could, like, do equally well in the jobs men have, like, educating and medicine and law and everything. And then also with, like, the decision, the imminency of you have this opportunity and, like, these resources, and these experiences, and so now's the time to, like, step up and do these things. Again, but then going back to, like, the existing institutions, like she mentions the first half of the passage of, like, the men crossing the bridge. Now she wants, like, women to also be crossing that bridge. Okay, so that's question 33. 34. Okay, let me remove the star. Okay, 34. Woolf uses the word we throughout the passage to mainly to A, reflect the growing friendliness among a group of people. That doesn't really, like, to me, represent the tone of the passage. Throughout the passage, you get a sense of, like, urgency and immediacy. Kind of, like, if anything, kind of like a collective we of, like, let us think in offices now. Hold on, like, who, oh no, that was bad. Who, we who now agitate these humble pens, nobody will dare contradict us. It's, like, solidarity and unity rather than, like a friendliness. Like, it's not really, like, camaraderie, but more like a forced unity that, like, people who have, like, like, women have been, like, forced into these positions, so now they face the solidarity out of, like, oppression. So I don't really get a sense of friendliness with that. Okay. B, advance the need for candor among a group of people. So, although Woolf is, like, criticizing, actually, she's not really criticizing. Woolf is noting that these existing institutions with men could now have the possibility to be open up to women, but it's not, like, a candor issue. Like, in the beginning when she talks about, like, the men crossing the bridge, no one is really, like, lying to women. There's just this, like, social, like, invisible social contract of, like, oh, you can't really, like, cross this, like, this bridge, because this isn't really your place. So no one's really lying because everyone's pretty clear about, like, roles in society and everything. So I wouldn't say it's candor, because she's more commentating on, like, the oppression and, like, not really feeling equal, but not because people are lying or anything, just because, like, it is what society is. Okay, and then C, establish a sense of solidarity among a group of people. So this sounds more correct to me so far. Like I mentioned earlier, that we tends to be used in, like, a unity solidarity thing of, like, we who now agitate these humble pens, nobody will dare contradict us, then we shall be the mouthpieces of the divine spirit. That's very much like, you know, like, feminism, like, female power, empowerment as, like, a collective group that really, like, matches, like, the whole, like, solidarity thing. And then D, reinforce the need for respect among a group of people. So Woolf does demand, like, respect for women in this passage. She's emphasizing that women have been, like, disrespected long enough. It's now their time to, like, rise up and everything. But she doesn't really use we as, like, a we deserve respect kind of thing. If anything, she's using we as, like, a collective for women to band together, not for the woman to, like, it's like for women to demand respect, like, together, but it's emphasizing the togetherness more than the respect part. So, like, going back to C, which I think is the correct answer given all this, it's the solidarity that, like, women as a we can come together and then demand respect together, not, like, really emphasizing the respect part through the use of we, if that makes sense. Okay, and then last two questions. Okay, so, oops. Okay, last two questions, 36 and 37. Okay, so 36, Woolf indicates that the procession she describes in the passage, A, has come to have more practical influence in recent years. I wouldn't really say that. is like the main message coming out of that. With the procession, she's more emphasizing, I think, like the tradition of it, as in like it's always been like this, rather than them gaining anything in like more recent or modern times. I think really in that beginning, like opening, she's just emphasizing the tradition of it. Yeah. Okay, and then B has become a celebrated feature of English public life. Oh, sorry, has become a celebrated feature of English public life. Um, I would say like the it like the way she phrases it isn't like as isn't like a recent development. Like she talks about how like these men, like going back to the tradition thing, the way the possible answer is worded as in like has become a celebrated feature seems to imply that it's like a recent development, but I think I get the sense of more like tradition and like men have always been in power type sentiment, rather than like it's been a recent development that this has now become like a very prominent feature part of English society. I think like she seems to imply that it's always been like prominent and featured in everything, and the has become like there's no like real shift in like tone or opinion or anything that she seems to imply in this passage. Okay. And then C includes all of the richest and most powerful men in England. Um yes, I think um I don't think well, hold on. I don't think she's really emphasizing the all of the richest and the most powerful men in England. I think by using like the phrase "our brothers," sorry, it's hard to see. By using "our brothers," she seems to suggest that there's like some like equality, some sort of equality to it, in that like our brothers, these men are like familiar to us, they're like in our lives and everything, and so while they are like rich and powerful, they're not like the most rich or the most powerful, because by using the word brothers, it's like you know them, they're familiar to you, like you're related to them, and so they wouldn't be like the top tier in power, they would just be one of many people in power. So I don't think that it's C. Okay, and then D has become less exclusionary in its membership in recent years. Um, yeah, I think so. Yeah, because, okay, I'm gonna erase this part so it's a little clearer to see. So if you can see here, this part that I'm outlining at lines like 19 and like 23. So, and I'm gonna read it. But now, for the past 20 years or so, it is no longer a sight, merely a photograph or fresco scrawled upon the walls of time, at which we can look with merely an aesthetic appreciation. So with this, she's saying for the past 20 years or so, it hasn't been like a historical thing. It's like she's emphasizing like a change, as in, like, you know, for the past 20 years, or like before it's been like this, but recently it hasn't, like, like it hasn't demonstrated like that, like impenetrable strength and everything, and with anything. She continues also with the sentiment, like the later section, erasing so it looks a little clearer. We who have looked so long at the pageants and books, um, we too can leave the house. By like expressing that like we can now do this, she wouldn't be making that argument if she didn't sense a change in society. Like, she wouldn't be encouraging a woman to like rise up if she didn't think that there was now a space in society for them. So I think it's D, because she emphasizes like the change recently, for a woman to now have the possibility or the potential to like join this like previously like all boys club. And then her overall argument of like women can now rise up and take their place wouldn't be valid if she didn't sense a change in the like existing societal institutions that would that have now, like, left gaps that women can fill. Okay. Last question. 37. Which choice best provides the evidence for the answer to the previous question? Okay. So let's just go over each line. So lines 12 through 17. Okay. Going to erase this so it's a little clearer. So lines 12, 17. Okay. There they go, our brothers who have been educated at public schools and universities, mounting these steps, passing in and out of those doors, ascending those pulpits, preaching, teaching, administering justice, practicing medicine, transacting business, making money. Okay. So the argument that we want to support has become less exclusionary in its membership in recent years. Oh, and also for these type of questions where there's like an argument and then there's like which lines support this argument. If you're not really sure what the like argument or the meaning of like a specific part of the passages, you can go to the lines and kind of figure out what they say, like, and then try to kind of like connect them to the claims that they list in the previous question. So you can kind of like reverse answer them if you're stuck. Like if you don't really know what the claim is and then they ask you which evidence best supports that claim, or you have picked a claim and realize that there's no evidence that really supports it, it's probably the wrong one. And so you can like go back and kind of like adjust your claim or your evidence based on like the existing evidence they give you. So it's kind of like a matching thing. So yeah, just one particular tip with that. Okay, so going back to lines 12 through 17, basically just like lists the tradition of like men going to all these places of power. And then the claim has become less exclusionary in its membership in recent years. So these particular lines, if anything, are emphasizing like the beginning tradition of that. So I would say probably not. But let's keep moving on. Okay, lines 17 through 19. So, okay, 17, 19. It is a solemn sight always. A procession, like a caravanserai crossing the desert. That kind of continues with the tradition that I picked up in, like, lines 12 through 17 of, like, it's kind of always been like this, and just, like, a long line of men just, like, walking to all these existing institutions of power. So I would say probably not, because it kind of goes with the first answer, but let's keep going. Okay, lines 23 through 24. Okay, 24. Wait, 21, 22, 23. Okay, sorry, can't count. Okay, 23, 24. We can look with merely aesthetic for there, trespassing along at the tail end of the procession, we go ourselves. Okay, this fits in more with, I think, what Wolf was saying of membership has become less exclusionary in recent years, because she's talking about how we, like, for once in, like, the life of women, they can now join this procession of men. So that kind of goes along with, like, membership being less exclusive. Okay. But let's, like, eliminate any other answers. So last one, lines 30 through 34D. So 30, 34. We too can leave the house, can mount those steps, pass in and out of those doors, make money, administer justice. We who now agitate these humble pens may in another century or two speak from a pulpit. Okay, so this is like the like motivational like section of the text, kind of like, you know, like gathering momentum of like, yes, we can. But it doesn't really go along with the idea that membership in these existing societal institutions has become less exclusionary. So in like this part, she's emphasizing the like ability of women to like be like equal partners in this, but she's not saying that these institutions have become like more welcoming. It's just like that women can do it too. So I would say that it's C, because in lines 23 and 24, she explicitly talks about how how we go ourselves. trespassing along the tail end of the procession. So I think, like, D is a tempting answer because it's very, like, a, like, feminist power, like, yes we can type moment, but it doesn't actually, like, explicitly, like, mention the idea that membership has become less exclusive. It's just kind of, like, following that idea. Like, it's, like, the second part of that argument, but you're really trying to look for the first part that explicitly states that so that you can move on to the next, like, now women can, like, do this too thing. Okay. We've answered all the questions. I hope that was clear, guys. Let me know if you have any questions, but thank you so much for watching. And yeah, see you in another video.